Good morning. It's Friday, and this is the Grief Chat with Jill, there, and Deb.
That way or that way. I'm not sure. However, it shows up.
Right?
Good morning. Good afternoon here, and welcome to all our viewers. And I just put it out there, so I hope people tune in. And if not, they can watch the replay. Yeah, happy
Absolutely.
Friday. Isn't today is the calendar day of spring, or maybe tomorrow's the calendar day of spring. And it was more than blustery with lots of power outages yesterday. And the rain was just incredible. And our creek went from about 4 feet to 12 feet.
Oh my God.
And it started to overflow into the fields. And I'm sort of looking out the back door, the back way. And now we needed that much moisture. We need that. So, but it went down overnight, so nothing overflowed any place. Yeah, we have.
That's crazy town.
Yeah, that's how much rain, and it was crazy town. It was stay off the roads, and yeah, lots of accidents, lots of power outages. We didn't lose power right where we live, but down the street they did. Lots of Amarin trucks all over the place. So, yeah.
Boy, we've had beautiful weather. The sun is shining. We need more rain. We're not going to get it. But so it sounds like we're heading for a drought in the Southland and the western states. But we know how to do that, right, folks? We know how to conserve our water and turn our sprinklers off.
Yeah.
We know how to do this, and we'll be okay with it because we're going to be outside again before too much longer. I really hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's sweatshirt weather. And this sweatshirt was when my daughter was in sophomore in high school, and she was on the soccer team. And she comes over today, and she has the same one on. She's 38.
Oh, I love that.
How old. Yes, we're both wearing the same sweatshirts today. I said, I need to put a little makeup on for it's so funny. Yeah, I'm getting ready for art show. Well, not art show. I do readings. So I'll be doing readings tomorrow in Decatur, Illinois, and at the art farm. And let's see, I make cards. They're called Sacred Shadows or Died Laughing. I don't have an example of them here. I should bring them in. The Died Laughing ones are these mostly skeletons that I rearranged in different places.
I think I have one on my desk. I do.
I think so. I think I sent you a Christmas.
You did.
One.
You did.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly. So those are the Died Laughing ones. I know. So we made some cards like that.
Oh, there we are. Everybody take a deep breath. It's Friday.
Oh my gosh. And
we weren't kidding when we said with humor.
Oh my gosh. You posted something. Was it you? No, it was my cousin. Posted almost like a fill in a blank news cast or printout that news people would use that used a lot of satire to emphasize how we keep repeating the same scenarios of a certain group gets targeted by a white man, a Caucasian man, and what the press says, what maybe the small town says, but it was satire done right.
Right.
And what satire is a way of using the elements of making humor, of exaggeration. Oh, it's this big. Wait, I should get the camera. It's this big. Or Oh, it's that small. So using exaggeration, minimization, some ridicule, making fun of, and just some other elements of humor to point out what's contemporary or political, and exaggerating it. And for some of us, I once wrote a grief letter with all the fill in the blanks. I should bring that on sometime. It's
You should.
humorous. I talk about all these different things. Maybe I'll do that for next week if
Okay.
nothing big happens again, such as the killing of the Asian women in Atlanta. And so we've heard this before. And then in a very insensitive manner, um, because people don't know any better how their words affect others, that sheriff sort of, I'm sure well, maybe he did. Anyway, he defended. What came out was a defense. He was having a bad day. No, the people that died, their families, that is called minimization. Oh, they were having a bad day. Are you kidding me? So
And the implications and the ripples that have come out. There have been, first of all, our hearts go out to everybody in the metro Atlanta area for what's gone on. And everybody across the United States who is of Asian descent who is being or feeling targeted right now. We should all be standing up and by. I've got, I hate it when people say I know a gay person, so I'm friendly with gays. No, but I grew up in a community that's multicultural, multiplex, and some of my very dearest friends are Japanese and Taiwanese in origin, and they've been targeted. And my Japanese friends have had families who were interned in World War II.
That's right.
And so they've
That's
not
right.
had just one. This has been ongoing. We just don't talk about it. And,
Right.
Yes, we need to be aware of Black Lives Matter, but we need to be aware that our Asian communities are being targeted right now, and we need to be supportive and caring and loving and speak out.
I wanna talk about another friend of mine who is Asian American, and he had just put out, I don't want to give away too many details, but a paper saying how in this particular type of study, Asians are underrepresented. So that's enough. And this is what I said to him, and he was like very sad and affected by what happened in Atlanta. And growing up with anti-Semitism around me, and physically being beat up for being Jewish, taunted with words, and et cetera, my heart, no, my stomach, when I hear of another group, I don't care what group it is. Yeah, I don't care. Let it be
being
known.
targeted. Nobody gets targeted.
No, I'll tell you what. If white supremacists, and a whole bunch get targeted, it's going to be harder for me to muster up empathy for them. I'll just, let me say it straight up. They need to be shut down.
They do.
And well, I'm not going to get into debate about the perpetrator that was the suspect.
We don't need to give him any press.
No. They may or may not have an addiction. Even people with alcoholism, which is another addiction. When you target people, when it's a group of people that are of one color, persuasion, sexual persuasion, color persuasion, religious persuasion, when it's that is racism. Yes. And Tina, yes, we all bleed red, Tina. I think about and I've said this before, and you've seen, if you're into doctor shows like I am, or nurse shows, when the perpetrator comes in, the person treating them doesn't know it's the perpetrator right away, and then they're in a moral dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that happen, and I treat their body. I don't like to think about anything else. I'm perfectly honest, because we all bleed red. That's right. In order to exist on this planet, you have a heartbeat. So I have to look at what we have in common to get me through, and let others do the judging for that moment. After they're gone, it's free reign for me. I don't mind saying that. So anyway, like you were saying, I think about the collective grief that went on as another group got targeted, and any other group that has ever been targeted was hit in the stomach just like me. I know I'm not alone.
Absolutely, because once you've been targeted, it rolls into your experience and you're absorbing their experience. I think too, this is very much like the awakening that many had when Black Lives Matter occurred, in that we didn't see the collective grief and angst and fear. Many of us, I used to teach adoption classes, and we used to teach potential adoptive parents, if you're going to adopt a child from a different group, you have to know how to raise a child from that group so that you can teach them how to be safe. And that was 25 years ago. You know, how to raise a Black teenager so that if he drives in a predominantly white neighborhood, he's not targeted. That was 25 years ago. So clearly, you know, it's been going on, but this is an awakening for a lot of people. And there's now a whole lot being said by the Asian American community that this has been going on for, you know, since before World War II.
Right.
And it started with laws that prevented people of Japanese heritage from even owning homes in the United States and in different states. And we had that here in Riverside in my community. And it was the first city where somebody actually won. The Haradas won the first lawsuit all the way to the Supreme Court that allowed them to own property and be called citizens. So it's been going on for a long time. And we all have some grief to share, and we all need to make sure that, just like with any other loss, we're keeping an eye out and listening for and supporting those in this community in a very special way this week, and as this whole thing progresses. Because the fact is, it was in places that were associated with one particular group. It doesn't matter whether it was nails or massages or psychotherapy, they were targeted because of who they were. And that in and of itself is such a big thing.
Right.
So let's all make sure we're taking care of our friends and neighbors right now.
That's right. You know, it brings up a good point that a loss is a loss is a loss. And you don't know when you're going to get a punch in the stomach. You know, I'm going to use this only because of the Hatfield and McCoys. That's what they used to call warring families, right? They would, and maybe that is racist, saying it only happens with those kind of people. So I apologize, but let's say you have the blues and greens, right? The blues and greens, or let's use our hair, the blues and the pinks. All right. And not until you as an individual have experienced a little bit of blue or a little bit of pink, you really don't know what it's like to get targeted. I mean, you may have been bullied alone at your school. Or maybe there was a lot of sexism, so you can identify with females that are taunted. But unless you've been a little pink, or you've seen the hurtness of your pink friends or the hurtness of your blue-haired friends, you or the hurtness of dogs. Oh, that's Walter, isn't it?
This is Fred. He's got eyeballs.
Right. Oh, Fred's got eyeballs. Okay.
Yes, Walter is our blind one.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you felt it, I understand it is hard to identify or imagine. I guess this would be empathy. Can you imagine how they feel collectively? I mean, as a Jew growing up, guess what happened? I was taught to hide my Jewish star in different places, or talk different, which for a while my mother said, "You sound like you're talking down south. You've got an accent." That's because I didn't talk this fast, and I didn't, I didn't
How did
talk
you always weave in coping using humor when you were being targeted and when you were grieving the loss of your whole self as people saw you based on some factor of you?
I will say that as far as the Jewish part, I learned to not be as, and this sounds, not all Jews do this, but I rolled with the way they were talking. I translated it to, except when I was physically getting maligned, or, thank you, Tina, unless, like when it was written down on desks, all Jews suck, that's a common one. Or Jewish fraternities, they'd write the fraternity and say they suck, right? Or should die or go to hell, which is ironic because Jews don't really believe in hell. But anyway,
Exactly.
I just laugh. I usually would find the ironic parts and I go, really? And then in my head, I would say, do they suck like a Hoover vacuum cleaner or is it a Kirby? So I would make a joke to take the sting out of stuff for me. As long as it wasn't, when I'm getting rocks and bottles or hoses turned on me or, whatever, when
That's not a time.
No, I'm not making jokes. But when people are verbally being weird, I roll with it. And then I just sort of, part of me shoved it inside. Obviously, let me just say to our listening audience, not until COVID and a lot more things came up with Black Lives Matter over the last several years, I've shoved it inside so long that the anger, all the things I felt before came up. So let me just say that to my listening audience, because I would get teased about Jewish all over. And I just, like I said, the humor was deflective. Someone want to call me a wandering Jew, they were absolutely correct. And because I'm a Jew culturally, I'm not a Jew religiously. I follow cultural things. So how do I use humor when I've been bullied? And, if I wasn't stunned by being bullied, sometimes I'm stunned, I then ask back questions out loud. Like, I'm trying to think of an instance. Once again, all Jews suck. Like a Hoover, so I throw it back to them. I take a different definition of the slam.
Right. It's very much like the gay and lesbian community that has used camp as a coping mechanism for more years than anyone will ever know unless you're in the community.
That's right. That's
and
right.
That's why sometimes the terms that are used against people, those folks take them and make them their own.
Mm-hmm.
And and only those who are in that culture have permission to use those terms because they were terms of hurt before. But it's a coping mechanism and it's a way to get through this. So I just wanted to make sure we were really acknowledging what went on this week. And we've had yet another loss in how we see maybe our country or ourselves or the safety of our neighbors.
That's right. That's right. And, it's very multicultural. Once you step up, we have, well, in St. Joe, I just want to say we don't even have a stoplight, folks. There's maybe 5,000 people. We have no stoplight, stop sign, but no stoplight. But we have the gambit of food. Like we have bar food. We have a couple literally Mexican restaurants, not Hispanic, but Mexican restaurants, Italian, Chinese food, not Japanese food, Chinese food. We have gas station food. We have pizza places all over. Oh my goodness, a Dairy Queen, a Subway, not a Subway that goes underground, a Subway. And we used to have Lebanese food run by somebody. Oh, it was delicious. So you wonder, while those families, how are they feeling about right now? The people who are Asian here, how has it been for them? Are they okay? And, we ordered out from them a lot they were one of the small businesses over COVID over this past year, once a week. It was a once a week thing. So
are you going to drop them a card in the mail and tell them you're thinking of them?
That's a great idea. I might just go over and give them a card and let them know I'm thinking about them. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Because with grief, it needs to be named.
That's right.
It needs to be spoken of, needs to be acknowledged. Those who are experiencing it need to hear their support like any other loss right now. And we need to give people space so that if they need to cope with humor, they can.
That's right.
Because that's theirs.
And like Tina said, kindness. Maybe we need to start teaching what kindness is in the schools. And that something is unkind when you say it. Maybe not saying racist, saying that's an unkind thing to say. That helps no one grow.
Yep. In the schools here, we have a lot of the schools have signs up that say, before you say it, is it kind? Is it helpful?
Right.
Right.
Is it truthful?
Is it
kind,
true?
Helpful, or is it true?
Yeah. And if any of those are not checked, you don't say it.
That's right. That's right. So I grew up at a very young age to hide your Jewishness outside of, well, my parents were really worried about me because I already was leaving the religion as I go, I want to go to church because they all talk English and they talk about love. We don't. Those were the places I was. So my parents were pretty darn worried about me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have a dear friend who lives in this area who 2 years ago, I said, I found a beautiful mezuzah. And she said, I can't put one outside my door. And I just, how sad to feel like you can't, that's such a tradition. And she's observant. Right. And it just seemed just so wrong to even think that. And she said, no, I live in a beautiful neighborhood. I have wonderful neighbors, but there's too many haters and I just can't. So that was one of the ways that she, of course, does all the observations. And she has, her children have worn their Hanukkah shirts to school and Every year they teach dreidel, dreidel, dreidel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
Right.
but there's just a need for all of us to be especially aware of those who are hurting right now,
Mm-hmm.
but also give them some space to do what they need to do. And if they need to laugh with you, don't make it so
Yeah.
serious. If they need to laugh, it's okay.
Right.
What my
Right.
my my friends are using humor to cope with people even when they're being spoken to negatively in grocery lines, and turning it back on people, and that's a great coping
Yeah.
mechanism. It's a
Mm-hmm.
it's a natural way to do it, and it works.
And a way to, I don't know, a joke and someone's like enthusiasm for telling a joke, especially if it's uh not kind, you go, I don't get it.
Can you explain
And you
that?
just look at them. Yeah, can you explain that? And they're like, it'll, oh,
They'll
you
stumble.
don't have to say, I don't find it funny. Say, I don't get it. Because if you say, I don't find that funny, it sets up an adversarial thing. It's not a mirror. All you say is, I don't get it. Can you explain that?
What are you
What
thinking
are you
of?
thinking of? I'm like, well, I'd like to, in my head, I'm going, what the F are you thinking? But
Right?
out of my mouth, I'm grateful for all the years my mouth still is a filter. I got
Do substance
yeah.
abuse for them last week, and they requested that the grief that we talk about be all the grief. So talking about how they saw their people in the fleet saw the United States now, saw how they related to people in the US now, related to being in the military now, related to, and in talking with them, there were so many losses that they had nothing to do with deaths, but also included the deaths from COVID and all of that. And I think today we especially need to be aware that all of that is a loss, and all of that could be spoken of as loss and then coped with as loss. Hmm.
And something else, you brought up a good point. So I'm gonna also relate it to, what some of the things I just kept shoving it down inside. You might have felt a bazillion micro losses during COVID and you've shoved it inside. And now that things are feeling hopeful, all of a
Yep.
sudden you think you'd be like, oh, this is so great. And part of you is waiting for the other shoe to drop, as they would say. There's been a lot of people like, oh.
There's been a huge increase in anxiety.
Mm-hmm,
Huge.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's evident, and it's the more we open up, the more kids are returning to school for those areas where we haven't been in school in person. For those who are looking at, wow, I can go back to work, there's also a real clutch for a significant percentage going, yeah, but and then when I
Right,
go back, I'm going to have to face everything, all the things, all the people missing, all the people who've had to have
right,
who've experienced loss.
right.
So we've got a lot coming. This is as if the pandemic is winding down, we have a lot of loss to look at and to cope with and to do together. Not apart, together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Two together. One of the phrases my Uncle Irwin always used to say when he was faced with that sort of uh, discombomeration, like feeling one way and feeling another, he'd go, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Which in itself, when you keep repeating it, is humorous. It's a way to uh, let a little of the steam out so the kettle doesn't go,
Yep.
and maybe you have to think of yourself as a steam kettle. How are you going to let just a little of the steam out so it's not rattling? In Yiddish, they say, "Hach me a chinik," which means rattle my tea kettle. My mother used to say that to me. I was always like bothering her or whatever, according to her, and she'd say, "Don't hock me a chinik. Don't rattle my tea kettle." Like, how can you let the steam come off? what little coping mechanisms can you think ahead, because it's here and it's happening and it will happen to you. Maybe people, and for some people, they're tired of hearing about racism. All right, we get it. You have been flooded with these ways of thinking that you haven't integrated yet. It's a new paradigm, it's a new shift. All lives matter, people say. No, all lives matter isn't true, because Black lives haven't mattered, Asian lives haven't mattered, Jewish lives haven't mattered, and you as a woman hasn't mattered. You as a sensitive man has not mattered. So you can make that list whatever you want. So I get, if you're tired, how can you let the steam off so you can go back to paying attention to what you need to move through this new paradigm, this new way of, so you're grieving your old ways of not caring, right?
That's exactly it.
You're grieving that.
And not seeing it.
That's right. You were perfectly okay, and now people are saying, look, people, all lives will matter when Black lives matter too, when those Asian lot matters. And you saying every time Black lives matter, no, all lives matter. Seriously, they don't. They really don't.
Because some have had an implied mattering.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we are returning and as we are opening, let's make sure we're also keeping an eye out and providing a safe space for those who have been targeted or have been groups that have been targeted, because you don't know if they have been targeted and they just haven't told you. Because typically groups that are targeted also don't say it out loud. They keep that grief inside, so they don't share, because there's some shame involved in that, which doesn't belong there, but it's part of how people have always coped with being a targeted group. So let's make sure we're talking about it.
To relate that to something, think of, everybody's either seen a TV show or knows somebody that was in spousal abuse. People say, oh, why didn't they leave? Because there's a lot to be said in between why people stay. They stay out of fear for themselves, fear for the children, fear for the rest of their family. Why also do they say? Because they're too afraid to move forward someplace new.
And lack of support.
A lack of support, a lack of people judging. Oh, you have such a perfect family. Yeah, I cover up the bruises really well. Mm-hmm. The emotional abuse you're not hearing.
So I keep that inside. Let's take care of all of our people and keep our ears open and low to the ground. Yeah. Careful with the statements we make that might make someone silence up. And give them space to tell you what's there, so that you can be there for them and hold the space for them. Because grievers don't want to be told how to do it.
And they don't want to also hear, well, you need to be a little tougher. Yeah, it happens to everybody. No. Don't be positive, be present.
Exactly right.
For those people. You don't have to say anything else except, I had no idea it's this hard. Or, I have no words. Oh, I wish this didn't happen to you. There's 3 sentences you can say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. It is that time. This has not been our usual bright and happy show, but this has not been a week for that.
No.
But it's not going to have to be terrible. Let's go enjoy the not having been flooded, even though the creek did rise. When I was in grad school, one of my favorite professors, Dr. Bell, would say, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as to whether or not something was going to happen. So let's get out there and realize that we can make something good, but we can also just be present for those who need us. And if you're one of those that needs someone to be present, ask. Those around you may not know what you need. Raise the white flag and ask.
Mm-hmm.
They're people. or
Or
contact us.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
that's right. That'd be great.
All right, everybody, have a good weekend the best you can. Be safe, wear your masks. We'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye, everyone.